Housing attainability is central to our conversation with Ramsey Cohen from Clayton Homes. We discuss offsite construction and explore how these innovative homes blend seamlessly into existing neighborhoods, offering energy efficiency, faster build times, and significant cost savings.
Where do you guys see the future of housing from your perspective?
I think offsite construction in the next 5, 10 years is going to make up a much larger share of that single family housing starts. It simply makes too much sense. One of the really exciting things with those programs, though, is when a home is built to these standards, not only does the consumer get that 30-year conventional lending, appraisers are required to use a minimum of 2 site-built homes if there are no other cross-mod homes available within their appraisal radius. That's really exciting.
I'd like to welcome everybody to the Construction Lending Podcast. My name is Sean Ferris, your host today with Land Gorilla. And we have a real special guest. We have Ramsey Cohen from Clayton Homes, and really excited about this podcast today, Ramsey, and having you guys on here. I know it's been a lot of work to get this one set up, but really excited to learn a lot more about Clayton Homes and what you guys have going on. But to get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to work at Clayton Homes?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and share a lot of the exciting things that are happening in the offsite construction world at Clayton Homes. You know, we're certainly leading the charge in the industry in the offsite construction space. So I'm excited to share a lot of the cool innovations that we're bringing to the market and some things I think your audience is going to be very thrilled to learn about and be curious to learn more. So a bit about myself, a bit about the organization. I've been with Clayton Homes for a little over 15 years, and I kind of stumbled my way into it. Still going to school, needing to find some work, and began working for our mortgage company, or a mortgage company underneath the Clayton umbrella. Vanderbilt Mortgage, worked there for a time, eventually was selling land, moved into marketing and advertising space. And then the last couple of years, I've really focused my time and energy on helping us build new relationships that are a little outside our part of the industry, of the larger housing industry, and helping us find new avenues to bring our products to new markets, right? So to give a little history of the company, which the history of our organization is in many ways tied to the history of our industry. So we are a 60-plus-year-old brand that we really led the way in the offsite construction space. And when you look at the history of offsite construction, that's really one that we've always been about 10% of single family housing starts, up markets, down markets. We stay right around that 10%. So a lot of what I've been tasked with, a lot of what we want to achieve as an organization is to grow beyond that, not just for us, but for the industry, because we know and believe that we can be a part of the attainable housing solution and solving that challenge that our country is facing. But to do that, we have to find new distribution points. We have to bring new innovations and new products to the marketplace. So that's kind of what I've been focused on, and what the organization as a whole is really focused on over the next few years in the future.
Well, you mentioned a really cool term in there, and it's the first time I've ever really heard it described like this: offsite marketplace, right? And for
Yeah.
those that don't know a lot about Clayton Homes and what you guys specialize in, which I do, tell us a little bit about what an offsite marketplace is and what encompasses that universe.
Yeah, absolutely. So offsite construction is really what it sounds like, right? So it's a home or a thing built offsite, right? So for us, that's building homes and one of our 41 building facilities across the entire country. So wherever a builder, developer, consumer is, we are equipped and set up to be able to supply a home for that individual. There are a few terms, right, that get associated with that offsite construction world and space. And I think it's key for you, your audience, and anyone curious about learning more to know these important and distinct categories, let's call them, within the offsite construction and offsite home building space. So one that we hear a lot, right, that gets thrown around a lot, that is kind of stuck with the industry, is mobile home, right? That technically refers to a home that was built prior to 1976, when the federal government stepped in, when HUD, Housing and Urban Development, stepped in and began to regulate our industry, provide certain standards for energy efficiency, quality, durability that the homes have to be built to. So it's a national building code that our entire industry follows. And a mobile home refers to a home that was built prior to that 1976 code. A technical definition that kind of complements that or that came after that 76 inflection point was a manufactured home. So a manufactured home is a home built off site that was built to that federal HUD code. So it meets that building national building code standards. Another term that we hear a lot of is modular. And that can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Some people throw that out and, if they're not part of the industry or don't have a lot of familiarity, what I've experienced is a lot of times they're referring to a home built off site, but to very high standards, right? Full drywall throughout the home, really high quality amenities throughout the home, has a design, fit, and finish of something that would look more like a site built home. May or may not have a frame. A home built to the HUD codes required to have a metal frame attached to the home. It may or may not have that. But for us, what a modular home truly means is a home that is not built to that federal HUD code. It is built to these state and local codes for wherever that home's final place will be. So for wherever a consumer is going to be placing that home, it's a home built to meet those state and local standards. And then, another category that I think is really key, and that the home you see behind me on my background here is a home that meets these standards, is a new innovation that we've brought to the marketplace that the industry has called CrossMod. And so a CrossMod home is a home that really brings together those ideals, that site built fit finish, depth and dimension, that a lot of people associate or think of when they think of a modular home, but it is still built to that federal HUD code. And that's a key differentiator in that it allows us to build out of many different facilities. Not all of our building facilities can build to a state and local code. It also gives us an exact template to follow in terms of building codes, right? That process of having a defined code and way that we build the homes helps bring about a lot of efficiencies in the marketplace or in a facility. So you can imagine if you were to try and build every single home to a completely different building code or standard, it would slow down production considerably. And we all know time equals money, so you're going to see cost go up. And again, it limits you on the number of facilities that we'd be able to produce a home from. So those are kind of the four big buckets, I would say, of uh, product categories in the offsite construction space. Mobile being a home that nobody makes anymore. That is an outdated and incorrect terminology for the industry, referring to a product pre 1976 and federal national building code from HUD. A manufactured home or offsite construction home would be post 1976, built to that federal HUD code. Modular home, it's a home built offsite, but built to a state and local code. CrossMod, a new exciting innovation, built to that federal HUD code, but with the design, depth, dimension, and aesthetics of a site-built home.
That absolutely great. So I'm going to continue with that and kind of make sure that I completely understand where that seat is. And it seems like we have there's like two sides, right? We have the stuff built with HUD code, right, and then we have stuff built with state, local, federal code on the other side. And the cross mod stuff is super exciting. Kind of near and dear to my heart on what you guys are doing there with the cross mod stuff. But mobile home not used anymore. It was really kind of the wild west, right? They were building it to a bunch of different standards. And then you have manufactured housing built to HUD code with the cross mod, right? So it kind of sits on that side, almost like cross mod, kind of close straddles almost kind of to that seam. But then you have modular housing and stick-built housing that's all built to state and federal code. That's how I would understand it.
That's a great assessment of it. That's correct.
Well, what other terms do you think that are, I think it's great that we get in here and talk about the terminology because there's so much, I think, misuse of the terminology, especially, when you involve real estate agents and loan originators and production people and the end consumer. I think that you know, people just kind of throw around these terms and they're not quite 100% sure. And I think you've done a really great job getting those ones down in there. But then we also have things like HUD tags and HUD plates, right?
Mhm.
Uh, tell me what HUD tags and HUD plates are and what they're used for.
Yeah. So, as I mentioned before, HUD is the organization, the government entity that oversees our industry. So they inspect all of our homes. They provide a building code that each of our homes, in order to get that HUD tag or HUD plate, you have to be built to meet these standards, pass that inspection. And so a HUD code, a HUD tag or HUD plate is really just a certification that that home has been built to meet the standards set to the industry by HUD. So it's nothing more than an identifier, a way to know that this home is built to these very exacting building standards that HUD has laid out for the entire industry.
Okay, perfect. That makes sense. And when we think about this, the cross mod category in innovation, I know that there's special financing that's also available for those types of houses. And why don't you tell me a little bit about that? What's available out there, and how does this kind of all relate to the construction lending world?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're right. I mean, one of the key differentiators for CrossMod is it takes all of that speed and efficiency, the economies of scale that we get from large scale production, right? And the building offsite where we don't have weather delays, all that. It brings that into a home that looks, feels just like a site built home. If you didn't see the home arrive and you don't go into the crawl space, or if you were to go into the crawl space and see, the steel I beams from the frame, that's the only way you would be able to tell this home was built off site. And one of the key differentiators with it, if you use the word special financing, it's kind of funny because it's special to our industry, right? And that we now have homes that qualify for traditional 30-year conventional financing. But what's special about it is that it is standard 30-year conventional financing. Fannie and Freddie both have programs that are available to consumers that can get as low as 3 or 5% down to purchase that home. So it's a really exciting opportunity because these are homes that are going to come in at a much more attainable price point nationwide than what we're seeing a lot of new construction move into. So it's able to offer a home that again capitalizes on all the efficiencies and wonderful things that we gain from building off site, but bring it to consumers at an attainable price point at a fast speed compared to site building. And ultimately, consumers are going to be able to go and get a traditional 30-year conventional loan the same as they would on any other site built home.
And Fannie calls their program Home MH Advantage, right? And Freddie calls theirs Choice Mortgage. Is that am I nailing those off the top of my head pretty good?
Yes. So it is, Fannie has the MH Advantage program, and then Freddie has the Choice Home loan program. And each one of them are, again, it's a traditional 30-year loan. And one of the key differentiators for our industry of unlocking this is that each of those loan programs have specific standards that a home has to meet, both for aesthetics, for the foundation. As you can see, the home behind me, the cross mods are required to have a garage or a carport, that covered off-street parking, a certain amount of outdoor living space. I think it's a minimum of 72 square feet for a porch. We typically, go a little bit higher to make it a bit more functional for consumers. But all of those requirements coming from the lender, and to my knowledge, and I could be wrong, I can't think of many other loan programs that require certain design aesthetics and things to be included in the construction of a home. We do have those. We're happy to meet those to unlock that conventional financing for consumers. Um, One of the really exciting things with those programs, though, is when a home is built to these standards, not only does the consumer get that 30-year conventional lending, appraisers are required to use a minimum of two site-built homes if there are no other cross-mod homes available within their appraisal radius. That's really exciting because it puts us on par with other site-built homes, which we know these homes are in terms of their value that they're bringing. That's not something that's been true for our industry for the 60 plus years we've been around.
Yeah, I think that is, you highlighted a lot of great things in there. The fact that the home has to have these other design aesthetics to it and other improvements, the driveway, the covered porch, the walkway, all of those are really, really, I mean, they go down to the thickness of the driveway and some really interesting stuff in there. But, the big thing in there is the comps, right? And having been in this industry for as long as I have, and understanding the appraisal side of the business, that always seemed to get in the way. And, with these types of home, being able to use stick built homes is a huge, huge, amazing, hurdle to get past, right? I mean, isn't that one of the reasons that kind of makes financing a little bit difficult is, hey, I've got to go use another manufactured home that's 50 miles away and that was built, 20 years ago, that becomes a lot more difficult. But the fact that you could actually use more comparable properties that have the same attributes is a complete game changer in the way I think about it. What about you?
I, yes, I would say you've nailed the assessment of it. You're right. It is a complete game changer. It puts us on par and at the same level with site-built homes. We know that these homes are as good or better than any site-built home, right? In terms of their quality and especially when we start looking at things like energy efficiency. Another really exciting innovation that we've brought to the marketplace, and any cross mod home you were to purchase from Clayton today or moving forward can be built to what we call our e-built standards. E-built for us means it's our branding around a home built to the Department of Energy's zero energy ready home standards. So that's going to result in a consumer saving significantly on their monthly utility costs because this home is built to those high standards of energy efficiency. And we're excited about that, not just because it's the right thing to do and a great thing to do for the environment in terms of lowering consumption, but it also means that homes are going to have a lower total cost of ownership. It's going to be easier for people to stay in and afford their homes. So you think about the homes an appraiser might be using as comparables. If they're using a home that's, down the road a ways, but was built 70 years ago on site, I promise you that home's going to be a lot draftier and have a higher utility cost than a brand new e-built cross-mod home that we've brought to the marketplace.
Yeah, no, this is, I remember the very first time that I inspected a manufactured home. God, this had to be 30 years ago, and was out doing the draw inspections, and, got another draw inspection like a couple weeks, after I had gone out there and looked at the foundation and the well and septic. And, I'm like, oh, maybe this is an error, but I'll go back out there. They could add a lumber drop off, whatever this. And all of a sudden there was the home was there. And I'm like, how the heck did they build this thing? And I'm walking through, I was like, this is absolutely beautiful. And, and that was years and years ago. And I haven't had the luxury of walking through one of the hybrid homes or one of the e-built homes yet either. But for those that can't see us, we'll kind of describe us. Our background images, and Ramsey's background image is the exterior of a MH Advantage, not MH Advantage, but a
cross-mod home.
Cross-mod home. Got to get my terminology right. And then I have the interior shot. And this is, I've had this now for a week. I've had it up for a week, and how many people comment about how beautiful. Like, is that your house? I was like, no, not my house. You're never going to believe this. But the beautiful, wooden ceiling in there, and it's just decorated really well to boot. But this is not what my parents' generation would say is a manufactured home in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And I imagine you go through a neighborhood and you see this, and nobody would say, "Hey, that's a manufactured." That was built in a facility that wasn't built here on site, right?
Yeah, you'd have no idea. So the home picture behind me is one that we placed in the city limits of Atlanta, which is an exciting project. There's not been a lot of offsite construction utilized in, frankly, many major metro areas. There is some done, but certainly not homes built to that HUD code, right? So this was a really exciting project. And if you drive through this neighborhood, what stands out about this home is the fact that it has a garage. This is in a neighborhood that was built back when people were largely going to be commuting through a trolley or a other form of mass transit that we just don't have as much of, shifting to a more car-centric culture now. So it's one of the only things that stands out about it, that it's new construction and all the homes around it are 75, 85, 95 years old, right? And so you're right. It's a home that, especially when you see it in person, seeing is believing. The proof is in the pudding, right? When someone enters these homes for the first time, it is universally, oh, whoa, I didn't think this is what you could build in a facility or you could build off site. And people are always blown away. And again, it's a home that, we've had developments. I'd give an example of one in East Tennessee where homes, were sold to an initial buyer. There's now been a second, third buyer. Um, I don't know that those second and third, buyers of the homes have any idea that their home was built off site. And it frankly doesn't matter to them because it's a home that is going to serve their life, right? It's the right kind of floor plan and size for those individuals. And it's going to be at a payment they can afford, and it's going to have low utility costs. That's the only thing people ultimately are really caring about. So you mentioned older generations and these older, outdated perspectives about the industry and the quality, fit, and finish of the homes, right? Like that all falls to the wayside once someone actually steps into our home. And what's really exciting for us at Clayton is that what we're seeing is that younger home buyers, people coming into the home buying market for the first time, not just for Clayton, but home buying more generally, they're not bringing in those same kind of preconceived notions or ideas about a home built off site. These are homes that, again, enable the lifestyle that they want, that are going to be, payments they can afford with low utility costs so that their money can go towards their lifestyle, towards long-term savings, towards vacation, whatever it is that they want to do with that investment that isn't tied up in paying for their house. There's a lot of really exciting things that are enabled by using these homes that are built off site.
I just keep looking at that the image behind you, and I'm, it's like you can't quite tell. You can't quite tell. Like, well, what would it look like if it was a manufactured home? What are the things that design wise? And I see the attached garage and the paved driveway, fantastic. And then I see all these the roof lines. Definitely is a
I'm trying to
differentiator, right?
You guys watching can see the whole thing. Yeah. So I think a great way to think about CrossPod, right, is we build 70% of the home. A site builder or developer builds 30% of the home. So if you're wanting to develop with these and you're doing a pocket subdivision, say 8, 10 homes, right? All you need to worry about as the developer is, your horizontal work. You're gonna have to do that with any kind of development. But if you build a foundation, we then bring 70% of the home already completed, set it. You finish out building the garage, the driveway, and the front porch, and you're done. So I think on average, we're seeing from footers to finish. So starting foundation to being ready to have a final clean out, list the home for sale is around 45 days, 45 to 60 days on average. So you think about that speed of construction, because we're building 70% of the home off site, you're enabled to move a lot faster. I wish I could show you, and people can go to the Clayton Homes YouTube page and watch a video about these homes in Atlanta in particular. There's an image we have of the homes arriving on site, taken on like a Tuesday around 4 p.m. Wednesday morning around 9 a.m., you have a home that's totally finished except for a garage, porch, and driveway.
I mean, that just makes us compressing that time is such a huge advantage. Less money paid towards interest, shorter term for construction financing. At the end of the day, it's all dollars and cents, and you're saving a lot of money. Getting one of those on the property versus, hey, it's going to take us 12 months beginning to end, and hopefully everything shows up on time, right?
Yeah, it's funny. We were at this Atlanta project, standing around looking at the foundation, the job site, getting, planning through when the homes are going to arrive the next day, all of that. And a gentleman who was building townhomes and condos a few miles away drove by and saw us looking around at everything and pulled over and grabbed a coworker of mine and myself and said, like, hey, so when's your guys' lumber package dropping for this? So you got the foundation finished, and it was great because we got to look at it and say, oh, the whole house will be here tomorrow. If you want to swing by and see it done, you're welcome to do it. And he thought we were pulling his leg. And sure enough, he came by the next day and like, there's a whole house where the roofs are on a hinge and the roof line is coming up and being tied together. And it's like, I thought you guys were messing with me or some sort of weird joke here. It's like, no, sir, we built the whole house offsite and the whole house is going to arrive ready to be finished out in one day.
Oh, that's absolutely amazing. Now, if I am a construction lender, I'm listening to this podcast, and hey, we don't offer any type of construction program or anything that's really geared towards manufactured housing or even the cross mod. And I wanted to learn more about this, and I wanted to see how we can make this fit with our financing options and various programs that we have. Do you guys have any kind of resources? Can I pick up the phone and call you? Like, how do I learn more to kind of take the next step into seeing if this would be a nice fit for us to add?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, one, we are always here. Clayton is always here to help and support. We want to be helpful in terms of providing information, helping people get started. If you're, have a network of builders, developers, we want to be connected with them. We want to find new partnerships, new distribution channels for this exciting innovation, right? So, reach out. You can reach out to myself. I'm available on LinkedIn. We also have a ton of great resources here at our home office, as well as our building facilities across the country. You can also just drop us a line at crossmodteam@claytonhomes.com. And we're going to get the right person best equipped to help you solve whatever your unique challenge is, partnered with you, and give you a consultation on how to best get started with CrossMod, how you can start moving down this path. Because there are a few, not hurdles, but things you'll have to accomplish and do. For instance, in each state, you're required to have a retailer's license in order to buy direct from a facility. That's specific to the state wherever the home will be placed. It's a very easy process. We have the right kind of resources and guides to help people go through that process. So we're here to be a helpful partner throughout the entire development cycle for anybody looking to leverage this new product. Because if you're a builder, or you're a developer, and you got a crew that knows how to build a foundation, porch, and a garage, I promise you we can help you go a lot faster and get a lot more homes out there and done than you building the whole thing on your own.
So you have resources both for builders to help them become a dealer, right? As well as you can help a lender possibly connect to other dealers in the area that they may want to, learn from or pair up with or get referrals from, and vice versa.
Absolutely. We're always here to help build connections. So depending on where you are in the country, we're happy to make those kind of referrals or connections, especially if you do any kind of construction lending. We're building our own pipeline and flow of developers and builders, we're going to have the opportunity for those individuals who are going to need, construction financing and things to get the ball rolling on their projects.
Yeah. One of the interesting things, this is all, just so valuable and great. But one of the interesting things, like how did, the cross mod home, come into existence? Did somebody at Clayton wake up and have like this crazy idea, like, hey, how do we bridge this gap? How do we make housing more affordable? Was it Fannie and Freddie coming to you and saying, hey, we got to figure something out? Like, where did all of these ideas, even to take a step in this direction, come from?
Yeah, so I think the visionary leadership here at Clayton was a big catalyst for moving the industry towards this, solution as CrossMod. But it did take a whole of industry effort to create these kinds of programs with Fannie and with Freddie. It took a lot of partnership building and relationship building, learning from one another about, what can our industry achieve in terms of attainability and affordability. What are the barriers or financing barriers, both for consumers, well, developers? How do we solve for all of those? And that took a lot of collaboration and a lot of effort to bring about that. So it was, I wouldn't give any one person party full credit for it, because it did take the hard work of a lot of people and a lot of stakeholders in a lot of different areas, both on the GSE side and as well as on the industry side, to come together and develop these standards in an agreement of, hey, if we meet these standards, which we can and is possible, here are the kind of price points we can go out and achieve in the marketplace. Here's the kind of avenues we can create towards attainable home ownership that aren't necessarily going to be available if we don't partner together and solve this. I'd also say that Um, it's necessitated by the economy and by the way the home building has gone more generally. We lag behind as a nation in terms of our housing supply, and that's not just limited to affordable. That squeeze is particularly worse on the affordable side, but there's just been a lack of housing development, right? I mean, I think some of the GSEs or economists I've heard put it around 4 million total units, right? So that's going to take a lot of different things. There's not a single solution to that. I'd like to think if there was a single solution, we as a country would have already employed and put that out there. So it's going to take a lot of different things. We are part of that solution because of the efficiencies of building offsite and the fact that we can develop as quickly as we do with Crossmod. And it brings a home that again has that look, fit, and finish that consumers who we may have made economic sense for, they weren't we weren't breaking into their consideration set. The Crossmod gives us a home that helps us break into that consideration set and become an option for them. What's more is it helps us overcome zoning barriers, right? Local governments can oftentimes kind of be run by that NIMBYism and idea of not my backyard, right?
NIMBYism.
Yeah. And
say it with me, NIMBYism.
yeah. And, we can sometimes face that, but with an additional challenge or stigma around homes built off site. And the Crossmod home in particular helps us overcome that because it has the look, fit, and finish of a site-built home. So it's helping us open up some of those new markets and be in places where people want to live, as opposed to this is a great solution, be a great house, a great price, all checks all the boxes for a consumer, but you're going to have to go put it way out in the country where, let's say, a first-time home buyer wants to be closer to the city. They want to be closer to those amenities, that kind of thing. We now have those kind of product solutions. So it's taken a whole of industry effort to get us to where we are to create this kind of opportunity in the landscape that we do. And, you think about those financing programs. I can't think of any other programs that were created for homes that did not yet exist, right? Oftentimes we're creating financing programs to help make it easier for people to get into existing housing stock. We had to create these financing programs to create the landscape to allow for us to then start building and trying to sell and develop with these homes. So it's been a big effort to get us to where we are and to create the opportunity that we have in front of us today.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it in so many avenues there, and affordable housing is historically a very, very important subject to me. And I think, you ask the question, what is affordable housing to a group of people, and you're going to get, a variety of different answers. And, when I started out asking you this question about where it came from, I think this is what you guys have done, and, what Fannie and Freddie have all done is really created a solution that actually works. And, when I look back and, go back to my college years, one of the very first subjects I ever studied was affordable housing and the various affordable housing programs in the state of California, and how none of them were successful. They were all trying to understand what are the benefits of this lever over here, and what if we, reduce the price, or do it to this, or do a lottery, and just so many different I like to think in a good-hearted way that they were just experiments to find the right mix. And I think what you guys have done here is this collaboration of working with different groups to create a solution to a massive problem. And when I look back at, we were talking affordable housing. We've always been talking affordable housing, especially here in California. And it's just getting worse. I mean, it's, some describe it multi-generational. I think this is just going to be the norm, is, the haves and have-nots when it comes to housing. But especially with this Crossmod, you guys really came together. You put together something that people wanted and demanded, and, worked together. And it's a real, tangible, working solution. And you guys should definitely take some sort of credit for what you've been able to accomplish, because it does. It provides an important thing for people to live. This is a home. This is a house. And I'm curious, where do you guys see the future? And not just with cross mod, but where do you guys see the future of housing? From your perspective.
Yeah, well, first off, thank you so much for all the kind words, because I think you hit the nail right on the head with cross mod and what we see. You were right. Home housing attainability is an issue, and it's not just in large cities, right? It is in rural parts of our country. It's in every state and almost every municipality across the country. And I think one of the biggest challenges with that is that we're starting to move to a place where people in middle incomes are finding it more and more challenging to find just the supply, to find options of a home to buy, and then to experience the wealth building power of appreciation. We know that homes built off site can appreciate at the same rate as homes built on site. And so that's a really, really important thing that we're proud of, and we're extremely proud of the cross-mod innovations. Thank you for your kind words on that. In terms of the future of housing, I mean, I think it's going to look like the growth of solutions and things like cross-mod. We have other innovations and things that we're working on and working to try and lower that total cost of ownership and lower our time to build, because there is such a massive supply gap in our country that there's going to be a lot of opportunities for people to capitalize on that and to create new pathways and opportunities for home ownership. And so while I can't get into all the details of that, I can tell you that our goal, and again, as I said before, is we've always been around that 10%. I think offsite construction in the next 5-10 years is going to make up a much larger share of that single family housing starts. It simply makes too much sense. There is too much efficiency and time savings that come from building offsite. And we're just seeing a growing trend and interest in that. And again, a lot of that's necessitated by the fact that we have such a large supply gap. And so I think Clayton's continued focus on keeping total cost of ownership low, keeping that time from consumer interest to home ownership, working to compress that as much as we can, get it down to as few days as possible from starting build to home for sale. That's only going to be possible through leveraging a lot of the things that we do in the offsite building world. And so while I don't know what the future will be exactly, I know that it will be very, very centered on offsite construction and capitalizing on the growing momentum that we have in the offsite space, as well as the consumer and regulatory interest in trying to enable more offsite construction in more places.
But Ramsey, this has truly been a pleasure. As we near the podcast here, we have a little section, the rapid fire section. I think you got a little heads up that we do this towards the end of the podcast, if you've listened to any of the ones previously.
Yeah, certainly.
But if you're ready, I can just start firing off questions at you.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm excited. Let's go.
All right. What is a recent book or podcast that you found that is of interest to you? Or it could also be a movie. So movie, book, podcast, something, you found interesting out there you'd recommend to somebody else.
Yeah. So we actually just read one. My team and I here at Clayton did kind of a little book study together. The Motive, which is a book by, I always get his first name. Lencioni is the last name of the author. I want to say it's Patrick, but I might be wrong. So, but The Motive, it's a leadership book and talking about how the main thrust is that the most important parts of leadership are things that many leaders can ignore or not focus on. And they're focused more on the glory of leadership as opposed to the hard work of culture building, investing in coaching and developing the team around you, and that your people and the tedium of things like meetings have a far greater importance in your leadership than most people appreciate. And so it's a book I really, really enjoyed, and it's good to one, go through that exercise with your team, but then two, to kind of recenter on what's the important things you need to be invested in. And then as a sidebar, movie, it's not as relevant to business or anything, but I just watched Frosted, the new Jerry Seinfeld movie on Netflix, and I thought it was hysterical. I think anything Jerry Seinfeld does is funny, though. So
I saw the preview last night, and it looked hysterical.
Yeah, it's very, very entertaining.
I think that one's on Netflix right now too, right?
It is. Yeah, it just came out on Netflix.
Oh no, and I'll check out The Motive as well. That sounds really interesting. All right. Question number two. A recent product, and you can't say the cross mod. So we'll take the cross mod off because that's a really cool product. Recent product that you've discovered that you'd recommend to somebody else. And, by kind of an example, I always use my Ember mug. Having a cup of coffee at the same temperature is a complete game changer for me. But anything like that you've discovered recently?
Yeah, man, I'll tell you, mine's an easy one. I got a roof box for my SUV, and I know that seems like such a simple, like not inventive product to say, but I just this last weekend went and ran triathlon, went camping with my family, and just the ability to take a whole bunch of stuff and pile it up on top of the car, easy to load and unload, and then it was just the car was more comfortable because I didn't have a tent and a bike and all this stuff shoved in the trunk. Like, man, if you got kids and you're trying to go out and have adventures, I don't know how I was ever doing it without a roof box. Like, you got to get one of those.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. We were thinking about that because we're kind of growing out of our Tahoe. We got three boys, and
Yeah.
like we're trying to think, do we really want to upgrade to the Suburban, or just get something on top that we can go longer trips with?
I got that and realized, like, man, I do not have to upgrade my car, and because I don't need the massive car for most of the drives that I do, but for these weekend long or week long adventures, man, it was a game changer.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, this next question, I'm going to modify it a little bit for you. And I usually ask, would you ever build your own home? And I'm going to modify it for you in the sense of, would you ever, like, would the right word say, would you ever buy your own home? Would you ever live in a cross mod home?
Oh, in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. Without thinking. If I could be and I'll just be 100% transparent with you, that right now it would be challenging to get to find open vacant land where, we want to live, to be zoned for the school that my kids are going to go to the same elementary school I went to growing up. So we're a very small geography of where we're going to look and consider, right? But if I could find a place where I could put a crossmod home and be zoned for that school, I would do it tomorrow. You couldn't get me started fast enough. So yes, 1,000%. I currently live in a 100-year-old home. I can't imagine how much money I'd save on my utilities shifting to a crossmod home built to the e-built standards and that zero energy ready home standards and the DOE. I'd save a fortune every month. So yes, in a heartbeat.
That's absolutely awesome. Now, do you get the employee discount? Is the question.
I think there are some avenues towards that, but I'd pay well over asking just to have the opportunity to live in a new construction home that's not going to have a bunch of maintenance issues and have lower utilities. You don't need a discount to incentivize me on that one.
Oh, that's great. All right, last question here, if you're ready. If you could snap your fingers and change one piece of legislation, one piece of housing legislation or finance legislation, something that impacts this universe, right? What would it be?
Oh man, so I read a book. I'm going to answer a bit long-winded, but I read a book called Arbitrary Lines that really kind of laid out for me the idea that zoning is often inherently wrong and unhelpful, right? And so I would just eliminate zoning entirely and let people build and develop better. We need to make sure there's not a chemical plant next to the elementary school, right? But I don't know that we need to be as specific in dictating the exact look and aesthetic of a home and how it should be built. And it's got to be this way to be in this neighborhood here. And I think that builders, developers, and people around the country would find ways to solve problems and close that supply gap faster if there was more opportunity. If we were to eliminate the arbitrary rules around development and zoning, especially as it relates to housing, I think we'd see a lot more new innovation. I think we'd also see a lot more development. And it's so funny because you hear people talk about like, oh, yeah, the people vote in favor of really stringent zoning because they don't want things in their backyard, right? But then people go to cities like Charleston or New Orleans and they go on walking tours to see all the interesting homes and all these different designs. It's like, well, if that's what you want, we can't continue to dictate that every home has to be cookie cutter in this exact size and this exact place. So I think that innovation would solve a lot of issues if we didn't have as much zoning barriers. If I had a magic wand, I'd wave it and I'd do away with it.
I think most people agree with that, and there's plenty of communities that have that as an example. Texas in general, remember asking somebody a question like just being blown away. Like it's like you're indoctrinated into why planning and zoning is so important, and then you talk to somebody that where they don't have that, and it's like, well, how do you prevent them from building a Walmart next door to your house? And they look at you and go, why would anybody want to build a Walmart right next door to your house? That's not the best use of that space. Like,
Yeah.
they would only want to build it where it would be best for them. Right. And that's
Yeah.
probably right next door to your house is not that space. I was like, oh, that's a pretty dang good point.
That makes a lot of sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Well,
Yeah.
who's going to tell your neighbor they can't build a pink house? It's like, well, why would somebody if they want to build a pink house? It's their land. Let them build the pink house.
Yeah, let them build a pink house. It might be a super interesting, cool pink house. You don't know.
Great
Yeah,
subject for another podcast, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, Ramsey, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on here, and what you guys are doing at Clayton Homes is unbelievable and really exciting to learn more about the cross build and built homes, and just your contribution towards affordable housing and just the industry in general is very high in my book. So thank you for being on the podcast. Hope to have you on again in the future. Any last words?
Just one, thank you so much for having me, Sean. Really appreciate it. It's been a fun conversation. And then if anybody's out there and interested, please reach out to us here at Clayton. Again, Crossmont team at ClaytonHomes.com. You can find me on LinkedIn or just reach out. We're going to find a way to help you and solve whatever issue it is you're facing. I know we can help close the supply gap by working more with more people. So please reach out. And again, thank you for all the kind words. It's been a blast. Appreciate you having me.
Fantastic. We'll go ahead and include your contact information at the bottom of the podcast so people could reach you in Clayton Homes and learn more about it. But thank you again. You have a great day, Ramsey.
Yeah, thanks, Sean.
This podcast is intended for educational and informational purposes only and does not replace independent professional judgment. Land Gorilla Inc. makes no representations, warranties, or promises for and disclaims any express or implied warranties related to content. Before acting on any information, you should consider the appropriateness of the information as it pertains to your unique business needs.